for us, or is there not really a place for that in this? I don't know if you want to be associated with that act.
Depends on your audience. Do you think your
Depends on
audience
my
would?
audience. My
I mean,
audience.
your audience,
Wait,
I'm pretty sure.
They would probably think it's great. They would probably really, really like it. It's bigly, believe me.
bigly,
I
believe
can't
me.
believe
Well,
you had me off the top of your show do my Trump
I
impression.
did, and we're live too, so
Oh,
that one's on the internet
you!
forever.
All right,
Oh man,
that's
is
fine.
that entrapment? That
That's
might be
great.
entrapment. All
No, I
right,
mean, go ahead.
someone chime in and let me know if that's entrapment down below, but that's okay. Well, let's dive right into it. Well, we've already kind of taken the dive into it, so we might as well go into it. Everyone wondering who the heck this guy is.
I can do other tricks.
Other tricks. Well, let's keep our tricks today to talking about all the bad things in the world. Oh, we have an interest story that we're going to go with first, but before we go any further, let me go ahead and welcome everyone to another Unauthorized Caucus. I see that we are piping out there. There we go. YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, all the places that you normally find us. It's Thursday, it's noon, and it is a very unauthorized caucus today because we have an unauthorized face. Mr. Andrew Mueller is out on assignment, guest hosting for another show right now. So I decided that it would be a good opportunity to pull in someone who I think is very like-minded and who on a lot of the topics we talk about would have some opinions and some good discussion. As you all know, this is the place where we start to have those discussions, things that conservatives need to talk more about with each other so that we don't just go and vote correctly and say the right things, but that we actually understand really the why behind it all and put the dots together, not only for ourselves, but for our friends and family as well. So in light of that today, I have pulled on a good friend of mine who I've known for a number of years, longer than either of us probably care to admit. He is Mr. Jesse Pfister, one half, the not as nice half, as of the Love of Life podcast that he does with his wonderful wife, Courtney. They live here in the St. Louis area, homeschool family, all the same values that you and I often talk about. Some people refer to him as the Midwest Fabio because of the luscious locks that he has going, something that I don't quite understand. I've got the short hair going, but someone who I have come to appreciate his opinion, and I thought that it would be good to add today. So welcome, Jesse. Thank you for being with me today.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for having me. And whether you have short hair or long hair, you look good, man. So it's all.
I appreciate that. I think we would both admit, though, that we got the better end of the deal when it comes to both of our marriages. Our wives are wonderful and incredible women, and I know we have a lot of good things that we do with it. But yeah, it is good to be with you. And we got a lot of stuff. I've just so everyone knows, I've already kind of given Jesse the rundown. He knows kind of how we run things here. Andrew and I shoot stuff back and forth. And we've got a couple of big ones today. First of all, the most controversial thing that I think we will likely touch on, Jesse, you're sitting, right? You're sitting in your studio?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
The Oscar Mayer Wienermobile is officially changing its name.
Oh, good. Really?
Yes. Now the question is if we will relish the new name or not.
Okay.
Sorry, relish.
I'm
sorry. It had to be done. This isn't me. This is in the news article. They are changing it to the Frankmobile. The Frankmobile. My only question, have they asked Mike Lindell if that's okay? Can the Frankmobile compete with Frank's Speech, or is there going to be a lawsuit on our hands? What do you think? Is this a move of wokeness? We're getting away from the Wienermobile, which just has far too many innuendos available.
I don't know. I think you can do a lot with the word Frank that could turn around and be innuendo. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't really like it though. I think you got to keep it, but in an era of wokeness. I mean, everything's going. Everything's going.
Everything is going. It's true. They're taking the Wienermobile from us.
The Cleveland Indians. I mean, every sporting team has got to be renamed.
Yeah, my next door neighbor has the privilege of being an Indians fan, and he refuses to call them by their new name. He said, "No, I'm not doing that."
It's so weak. It's so weak.
It is. It is. So, yeah, let me go ahead and run in. Oh, let me put that down there. We've got the right article, wrong name, but I put that down there below just in case anyone's curious about that. I like to start with human interest pieces, but for real, the honest thing here is there has been a lot of chatter recently. And if you follow us, if you're subscribed, by the way, wherever you are, like, share, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, big red button. On Rumble, hit the big green button. Everywhere else, share the link with a friend. Go ahead and do it now. Let them know that you're listening to a conversation they should be a part of. And then you can have that conversation with each other after we're done. But go to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for our email list, and you will be censor proof. But there also, if you're following, you would have seen yesterday, we put out a statement about a growing movement that we've been hearing the same words repeated over and over again. And essentially it's that your kids aren't your kids. Your kids are our kids, the Biden administration says. This is Joe Biden, Kamala Harris have both said it. They've caught some flack for it. But this weekend, the press secretary, the White House press secretary, said the same thing. She actually went a little bit farther, too, in condemning the states who are putting together child protection laws against the sexualization, the grooming, the mutilation of children. As she was calling those out, she actually said that these are our kids. They belong to all of us. So when someone from the government says they're our kids, I guess they think they belong to the government. I don't know. I'm not sure what else quite to believe. So we put out a statement about this, but I think it goes a little bit deeper, and that's what we're going to dive into here. Jesse, what's your high level take when you hear someone say this? What immediately do you think? Where does it take your conspiratorial mind like mine?
Well, honestly, I think this is a great time for the church in particular to be talking about Christian nationalism. I think that that's the relevant topic when these kinds of crazy statements come out from the press secretary, that particularly Christians, we need to be having this conversation because, America is going and is a theocracy. It is not a question of whether, but which God is going to be leading and is in charge of this country. So clearly right now, I'd say Baal or money is the god of the state. People worship and want to essentially worship the state. We are worshipers and we're going to worship the state if we do not follow really the one true God. So, I think ultimately the question is when we look at the state, is the state God? And the state is saying by saying, hey, your children are ours. What we know as Christians know, you're far from it, right? Our children are ours. The family is an institution created by God. So either we're going to have a biblical morality or we're going to have a state-run, legislative, evil world or state in this particular case. And, they're going to continue to do things, ramrod down our throats that are completely antithetical to biblical Christianity. And this is the time for Christians to recognize Christian nationalism is the answer. And it's and what we need to be praying for is reformation and revival first in our churches. So yeah, this is a huge issue. These kinds of statements are completely outlandish coming from the Biden administration, but frankly, it should be turning our attentions to what is our response? Obviously, it's going to be a negative one, which it is, but our negativity needs to turn into how do we need to be approaching our thinking of the state itself? So I would say in a high level view, real quick, that's my take.
A high level view, you went straight to the punchline there. It's almost like you know how to do news and journalism writing, all the important stuff up front. Maybe you should go to CNN and give them some lessons. But by the way, this is a good time to remind everyone, this is a personal opinion show. We are not necessarily throwing down anything other than what the two of us think. And of course, we are absolutely inside the realm of everything that our organization stands for and the direction that we're going. So just as a reminder, we're going to throw out some strong opinions. Andrew and I often do, as you can see. I've definitely not picked a wallflower here, and my dear friend Jesse has some good opinions. But this is the kind of stuff we got to be considering. But that aside, you are absolutely on the track of something that I want to go down. That it is a theocracy. I know that this term gets thrown around a lot, and I already see here, besides some amens and go men's go, I see someone asking for a definition of Christian nationalism. Let's get to that in a second, Gwen. That's a good question. But I want to go down this for a couple of different ways. First of all, let's be abundantly clear. And this is what this brings up. When we start hearing people talk about how the children belong to the community, this raises the bigger question of well, if our children belong to the community, who do I belong to? Oh, well, when you start running that down and realizing that these are people who don't have this anywhere near the same kind of view that you and I have of our republic, that don't have anywhere near the same kind of view of religion that or the republic that our founding fathers did, this is Marxism, plain and simple. It's not even communism, which is a particular kind of Marxism. This is Marxism. And Marxism absolutely has a religious belief, or rather, I should say, a theological belief, which is atheism. Their belief about God, their theology is atheism, and their religion is statism. Let's be abundantly clear. The state is the supreme authority, the supreme being that owns us all, that we all benefit through our lives. This is where you come in a cog in the wheel. You are a part of society. And we could, oh man, we could branch off into all sorts of stuff, particularly down the field of education. Let me remind everyone, you can see all of our education work, edreporteronline.org. You will find a massive trove, a treasure trove of our great work from the editor Sue Kunstman, who goes down these things all the way down to the worldview ideological level, not just what's happening with the NEA. But this traces down that there's really no way to operate a government, a society together without some sort of belief about ethics and morals and where they come from. And what we're fighting is a group of people who think that ethics and morals come from us, because man is the supreme authority, and the supreme authority of men are the most powerful men, which is obviously the government that operates off of tax dollars. I mean, you start running back, that's exactly what we're talking about. So you're dead on there. And I think that this is something as conservatives, as Christians, which I believe most of us, everything that I've seen from our folks here, we all at least go into the Judeo-Christian ethic and worldview here in America. But as conservatives, this is something that we need to put these dots together. When you hear someone say things like, oh, our kids belong to all of us, there are America's children, recognize that whether that person is just what's the term, a useful idiot, or they actually know what's going on and believe it, this is where we are able to track back that thought to. This is the worldview behind it. And it's very important, because then you will start to see not only where we are, but you can start to understand where we're going, where even if the useful idiots don't know they're headed, you know where they're headed, because you know where the guiding hands on that side are going to take them. So it is a very good thing to call that out, to understand the dots. But you raise a hot button issue, and I would love, because I know you and I kind of flirt with the same theological persuasions and interests as far as who we listen to and who we're reading in the direction, and nationalism. Oh my, Jesse. My Midwestern Fabio, nationalism has become a very interesting word. So what do you mean by Christian nationalism? I'm curious. Give me a definition. Gwen has a good point here. I want to see what you have to say.
No, that's a great question. And let me say what it's not, because this is the part where a lot of Christians go, oh, nationalism, Christian nationalism. That sounds like something from a foreign country and a religion taking over in some kind of physical way. That's not what we're saying. So the founding fathers and Christians that are, or at least most Christians that I've read and I listen to, that support Christian nationalism, they were not trying to create a state church. I think that's what first and foremost needs to be understood, is that we're not looking to say, okay, well, I mean, for instance, I'm Presbyterian. I'm not saying, hey, I want the CREC or the PCA or whoever to be recognized as the state church. And they will be in leadership. So all you Baptists and non-denominational and non-Christians are underneath. No. We're not trying to establish a church. Christian nationalism is more of a, it's permeating the society with an understanding that first and foremost, Christ is Lord, and not just Lord of my particular life and my existence or yours, but he's Lord over all. And who said that? Jesus. When he rose from the dead, he says, I have all authority in heaven and on earth. So all Christians, regardless of your background or denomination, need to recognize that right now in space-time history, Christ is Lord over the United States of America. Now, obviously, as a country, we're clearly through this administration, we're not acknowledging that fact. But us Christians don't need to shy away or be scared of the fact that we go, no, Biden administration, Trump administration, any administration is not Lord over and sovereign over all things. Jesus Christ is Lord over all things. So I think we need to define it too, primarily by saying it is not a physical way of saying, hey, we're going to, go like, I was reading about Charlemagne the other day, back, 1,000 years ago. Here's a guy who I think with good intentions, he wanted to baptize people into the Christian faith. So he forced baptisms on people and said, hey, if you're living here, we're going to baptize you, and we're baptizing your babies and everybody else that comes along. It was forced on people to be baptized into the Christian faith. Some monk came along who actually had an understanding of the scriptures and was like, you don't want to do that. Like, that's not the way you force
Mhm.
people into the Christian faith. We do it by presenting the gospel, presenting biblical morality, which right now it's clear the state is not upholding that. Also, real quick, G.K. Chesterton, that great writer, he said something to the effect of, with Christianity, you get 10 commandments, and it's all summed it's all summed up with love. Love your neighbor as yourself, Christ says. But
Mhm.
with a godless state being the head, you get 10,000 commandments of
Mhm.
men. And so it's like, well, what do Christians want? Do we want to uphold biblical morality, or do we
Right.
want all of the things that are lynching us from the state? And you know, and also mass confusion. We have a state right now that says, well, we can't define what a woman is. Well, you know, this press secretary, how can you define what a child is? Much less a human being at this
Yep.
point. So sorry, that was a little long, and
No, no.
there you go.
And I mean, that's, and again, that's the thing, is this is all just knocking on the door when we talk about it. And that's what kind of spurred us into this week, as we were looking at Urge and the ACLU and all of these left-leaning, all of these radical, rabid leftist organizations running across the states, trying to strike down laws that protect children from sexual predation, trying to put laws back on the books that would put abortion not only in free access for adults, but into schools, and acts off parental consent over these topics between parents and their kids. When you look at all these things that are happening, and that's what the news, even conservative news, is talking about, it's really important to understand what's behind it and what's not behind it. And this is where I love to get into this stuff. So, I mean, everything that you're saying, we are peeling back the layers, getting behind this issue. And I think that's really good. No, you're absolutely correct. And I agree with you as well. The idea of, and the way that I think I've said it before, is essentially, we're not advocating for a specific religion. We're not advocating that you personally have to go and sit your rear end in a certain church every single day in order to maintain your citizenship. What we're advocating for is, we all recognize this has to be built upon something, objective truth and reality. That objective truth and reality is a Judeo-Christian ethic. The Ten Commandments. This is what societies have successfully been built upon. This is where the truth comes from. And I got to say, one of the things I was going to say, which actually we've got one of our regulars down here, Love Horses, and on YouTube, is talking about it. I love how the founding fathers did this and kind of separated it even from the issue of church itself per se. And I mean, we find at the very beginning of the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary. We know what this is. But down here, separate and equal station, to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them. We pulled back and said, here's the deal. You don't have to, even try to recognize that it's God if you don't personally want to. You can have that fun if you want to. But God himself set down the laws of nature. And
Right.
This is just, period, the objective, rock solid truth. So even if you don't want to personally submit yourself to it, communally, civically, we recognize the foundation that we're standing on. And everyone across the spectrum of religious or not so religious, church going or not so church going, which we don't even have to get into the history of the founding fathers. Inarguably, some of them were more religious personally than others. Everyone still had the same basic understanding that even if I don't want to do that myself, I recognize this is the only solid rock upon which we can build anything. Person to person. This is the only way it works, is the recognition of private property and individual rights. And all of these things come from a place, not just us making it up. Otherwise, we end up with 10,000 rules and 87,000 IRS agents and all the things. That's where we end up when you start making it up, or not even knowing what a woman is, or upholding women one decade and then trashing them the next decade by letting men run roughshod over Title IX women's sports that are all the things. You've created an intricate web of nothing making sense with each other, and there's no way to get yourself out of it when you're the one who keeps making up the rules of what is and is not true, or what is and is not morally or ethically right. That just doesn't work. And to your point, we've got to be built upon something. What kind of ethic is it going to be built on? So it's this is an understanding that I think all of us as conservatives need to understand where these things are coming from. I mean, we're going way behind the headlines today and really getting down to brass tacks. Like I said, thank you, Mr. 7 minutes in, we're going straight to Christian nationalism. No, that's good. That's really good though, because that's the whole point. That's where we are. And one of the other things that I think we need to recognize, and I know we're coming in here on about 20 minutes. We'll want to keep it short for everyone today. But one of the other things that I think we need to recognize is just how important these conversations are to be having amongst each other or among ourselves, among each other, because one of the things that I think gives people, and I was just talking about this with a coworker this morning here in the center, one of the things that gives us a lot of, well, I don't want to slander anyone. So, we get a little bit more comfortable is, oh, well, these are, we qualify it. Well, this is the bureaucrats. The President of the United States, Kamala Harris, their press secretary said this. Fine, let me beat up on the Department of Education, the National Education Association, the teachers unions. But, my teacher, our teachers, my school district, but
Yeah.
it's that, well, is it really though? I think that we qualify that in order to not offend our neighbors who are school teachers, not all of whom are awful people, but all of whom have been educated through and trained through a system that inarguably for 120 years has been based off of these humanist, secular humanist, Marxist principles that treat people, children, as the property of the state, and that treat the state as the supreme being from which all good moral law flows.
Right.
That's what the system has been established. So even if your local teacher, who's your next door neighbor and your sister's, brothers-in-law's, cousin, that person has still been trained through a system. This is unfortunately what we would call the useful idiot. They don't even know what they're a part of, and maybe they're being silenced. Maybe they don't know they're being silenced. And I think that kind of comes up this week. We're talking a lot about all of these powerful people saying that they're not your children, they're our children. Well, a Florida teacher down at the bottom level said the same thing. And I know this is one example, but let it be the good example. She gets in trouble in her Florida school for showing a woke Disney movie. She had, what was that one with the Strange World? I think got a lot of negative press for having an openly gay main character. She shows that and gets in hot water. There's a little school investigation. People complained. They didn't like it. We want to have a say over what our kids are being shown. You can't do that without us. Her defense was literally to say that when you send your kids through the door of that school, your right to shield them from something is gone. And you know what? She's right. That's actually how it works. Man, when you send your kids into the public school, you have given up that right. You don't have a say-so over it. You can't walk around behind them. What are you going to do? You can go and wave your fist and yell at a school board meeting, but she's kind of right. But the thing is, that's what she thinks it ought to be. She is using this as her defense for, hey, listen, you don't get to decide, I do. You obviously think this is okay. And I think that we ought to take a real hard look. Again, I'm not here to bash every local teacher, but we ought to take a real hard look at understanding this is not just this top level that has this warped secular humanist Marxist worldview. It is the bottom level that has themselves been indoctrinated in it. Their whole training coming up as a teacher. This is cogs in a machine. That's right. This is a pervasive problem from top to bottom. And I think too often we excuse the bottom when we ought to be vigilant as a hawk over it. Now, to the point, I don't know if there's anything to do other than pull your kids out of the system because, like she says, you really have checked that right off when they walk in the door. You can't do anything. So get your kids out. If Alex Newman were here, he would tell you, get your kids out.
Right.
And we both agree.
And then he would give us a history lesson on Horace Mann and the beginning and the founding of the public school system and what it was founded to do. And you realize that even from the point of origin, the public school systems were rot from the beginning. Even Horace Mann, the guy who was a huge proponent behind it all, was basically like, well, I can't get my current generation of people to agree with me on certain issues that were very antithetical to the biblical worldview. But he said, if I can get them as children, I'm going to win.
Exactly.
Which who does that sound like? I mean, that sounds like some of these dictators from World War II, right? I mean, it was kind of like, if I can't get them, I'll get their kids. And that's, and now for so many generations, long before we were born, our parents, our grandparents, long before, this has been a problem. And I think you're right. And of course, Alex Newman's right. The answer is all Christians should remove their children from the public schools. I know that's hotly taught, I know that's a hot take, whatever, but it's true. I mean, biblically speaking, we are called as parents to be raising our children in the fear and the admonition of the Lord. And if we're giving our children over to the public school system who is not doing that, in fact, they're doing the opposite of, I think we're going to be held accountable for that. And that's plain speaking, but that is, I think that is the biblical approach.
Yeah, I absolutely think you're right. And man, this whole conversation could go off into 100 different directions. But I think that this is an important thing to connect the dots from some of the news headlines we've seen this week to actually understand just how far and deep this goes into governance itself, into the foundations of our country, the history and heritage of our country, the understanding of the worldview of the folks, and even the useful idiots, the cogs in the machine. Love horses. You're absolutely right on what to call it, and then to really play out where this goes forward, where we ought to go forward. That's almost a whole separate conversation, but these are things we need to put together. And again, this is the conversations we need to be having. Well, why is that? At every point when something happens, well, why would someone say that? Why would they think that? Well, who else thinks that? Who else doesn't know that they're helping them think that? I mean, we are so deep into being, subverted from the inside. Domestic terrorists running amok as bureaucrats and even elected officials.
Yeah.
They want to call us domestic terrorists for being conservative Christians. At least the FBI in Richmond, Virginia does. But really, who is systematically trying to destroy what's made and built the most prosperous and free nation in the world? And this is the place to run down. So let's leave it off there. I know that we both have our days to get onto. All of you do too. We appreciate you joining us here at your lunch break. That's the thing. You know what I want you to do? I know that all of us are busy, but here's my action item for you today. Go and find people who are willing to have these conversations publicly, who are broadcasting them, who are making us think, who are giving us an opportunity to think and interact ourselves, because there is a lot of stuff out there. You go back and read the writings of the founding fathers, and you see these big bookshelves here. I've got a lot of things on that topic. Man, these people, the men, their wives, they were rich in understanding of history, of theology, of religion. We need to be that again, or we have no hope of reclaiming America and returning it to liberty, returning it to this moral foundation, this nationalistic view of where our ethics come from that we're talking about today. So be well read, be well listened, be well, all of the things. Consume all of the media that is going this direction. And as we said at the beginning, I'm posting a couple of links down here. The Love of Life podcast. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it wherever you find podcasts. You will find them. And Jesse and his wonderful wife, Courtney, are having these kinds of discussions across kids and family and church, culture, politics. You might even see my ugly mug on there. You never know, because now he's done me a favor. I owe him a favor. So we may create some content over there. But those are the places I want you to go and seek out and start enriching and growing your understanding of things. That's what we all have to do if we're going to turn this around. So that's it. And it feels like only the beginning. Jesse, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your perspective and your willingness and boldness to share it.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, everyone, go to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for my email list, and you will be protected. Don't fumble on YouTube. Go to Rumble. Sorry, I had to do it. But make sure, find us on all the alternatives. You'll find us at Truth Social, Getter, Gab, but also Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go and find us. Make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell on YouTube, and you will see whenever we're coming out with new content. Most of all, though, that email list, man, I'll get you. I'll let you know that we're coming. So thank you all for being with us and spending your lunch with us. Thank you, Jesse. And we will look forward to talking to all of you next Thursday at noon for another very unauthorized caucus. We'll see you next week.